Envision this. You are a young bride named Margot, scarcely 15 years of age, poised in the threshold of a rugged stone cottage in the year 1347. As your newly wedded husband, Henrik, draws near to the marriage bed, the dry rushes scatter beneath your bare feet with each hesitant step, echoing your inner turmoil. The dim candlelight dances across his rugged features. Etched by time, he is nearly twice your years. Selected by your father for his modest holdings of 3 pigs and a half-acre of barley fields, your fingers tremble as they grasp the coarse woolen shift, lovingly sewn by your mother for this fateful night, a garment passed down from her own wedding, and her mother's before that. Through the thin, draughty walls, the raucous voices of Henrik's companions pierce the air, their ale-fueled merriment laced with vulgar jests as they clang pots against wooden spoons. They will not depart until they receive audible confirmation that the union has been sealed. Your breaths emerge in shallow, ragged bursts as Henrik's rough, work-hardened hands extend toward the leather tie at your neckline. In this moment, you ponder whether your mother's hushed counsel on the obligations of a wife could ever suffice to brace you for what unfolds in this confined, smoke-laden chamber, redolent of damp wool and the earthy scent of unbathed forms. This is no tale of tender romance. It is the stark truth of medieval intimacy, a realm molded by ancient superstitions, the dread of divine retribution, and primal urges for endurance that appear profoundly alien to our contemporary notions of affection and passion. Before we delve deeper into these obscured chronicles of resilience and anguish, if you find value in uncovering history's concealed realities, I invite you to express your appreciation by engaging with this content, perhaps by subscribing for further explorations. Share in the comments the corner of the world from which you join us. It is remarkable how these timeless narratives unite us across vast distances and eras, bound by our collective intrigue for the annals of humanity. The medieval bedchamber served as a veritable arena where human forms became contested domains, pitting ecclesiastical edicts against lingering pagan rites, and where the most private exchanges were dictated by edicts so arcane and confining that they would evoke revulsion in a modern observer. These were not mere individual decisions. They encompassed eternal redemption, familial prestige, and the very essence of existence or oblivion. Allow me to transport you once more to Margot's era, where the notion of marital violation held no legal standing, for wives were deemed possessions, where the flow of menstrual blood was deemed so perilous it might blight harvests, and where an improper posture in Congress could consign one's spirit to infernal torment forevermore. In the Europe of the Middle Ages, the conjugal space was seldom secluded the watchful eyes of the populace, the church's unyielding gaze, and archaic beliefs all claimed dominion over the acts between spouses. When Margot bound herself to Henrik in that crisp autumn of 1347, their alliance was not marked by effervescent toasts or graceful dances. It was a pragmatic exchange, ratified through corporeal union and observed by villagers who possessed the prerogative to insist upon evidence of fulfillment. The rites of the wedding eve commenced well prior to any physical contact. Foremost was the bedding procession, wherein revelers would escort, nay, propel the newlyweds to their quarters, disrobing them amid ribald chants, then lingering beyond the portal to eavesdrop for the utterances that would validate the bond's legality. Henrik's comrades would persist until Margot's anguished exclamations resounded, signifying the rupture of her maidenhead and the marriage's completion. Yet herein lies the profound eccentricity of medieval Congress. The Church proclaimed that even wedded pairs might perpetrate grave transgressions within their sanctum. Saint Jerome, in his 4th century writings, asserted that a husband who cherished his wife with undue fervor was akin to an adulterer. The ecclesiastical patriarchs posited that immoderate delight, even in matrimony, corrupted the essence of the soul. This doctrine was no abstract theology. It permeated every facet of medieval carnal conduct. Thomas Aquinas, the eminent theologian, in his Summa Theologica circa 1265, delineated precise mandates for spouses. Carnal union was permissible solely on designated days, during select seasons, and in a singular configuration, man superior, woman subordinate, facing one another. Any aberration was deemed contrary to natural order, thus profane. Acts of oral congress were utterly proscribed, as were relations during menses, gestation, or lactation. By the Church's reckoning, adherence to these strictures limited licit unions to approximately 50 days annually. Margot would have absorbed these precepts from her mother, who in turn gleaned them from the parish cleric during sacramental confessions. The spectre of perpetual condemnation loomed over each tender interlude. Should Henrik advance on a prescribed Wednesday amid Lent, Margot confronted a harrowing dilemma: yield to her spouse's command and imperil her immortal soul, or resist and invite his ire in a society where spousal chastisement was not merely sanctioned but anticipated. The medieval comprehension of feminine desire rested upon egregious fallacies that endured for ages. Scholarly tomes of the epoch, drawing from Greco-Roman antecedents, professed that women were inherently flawed iterations of men, their generative organs merely inverted counterparts of masculine anatomy, the vulva, an averted phallus, the ovaries concealed testes. This was no casual misconception, it constituted formalized erudition disseminated in academies throughout Europe. Such convictions bore dire ramifications for perceptions of female ardor and ecstasy. The 11th century healer Constantine the African averred that women attained carnal fulfillment dissimilarly from men, necessitating extended arousal and successive peaks for conception to occur. This spawned the grotesque tenet that violation could not engender progeny, for the victim would lack the requisite bliss. Should pregnancy ensue from assault, medieval tribunals frequently interpreted it as indication of her complicity, thus apportioning blame. Margot's mother may have cautioned her regarding the migratory uterus, a malady posited by physicians to induce frenzy, derangement, or demise. They theorized the womb could roam freely within the female form, ascending to constrict the heart or descending toward egress. Remedies encompassed vaporizing the nether regions with aromatic essences to coax the organ homeward, or administering malodorous compounds nasally to repel it downward. The medieval era inherited a labyrinthine tapestry of procreative law from heathen antecedents, which the Church struggled to extirpate entirely. Village sages later vilified as sorceresses preserved clandestine wisdom of botanicals, ceremonies, and methods to foster fertility, avert conception, or favor male offspring. In the shadowed woods encircling Margot's hamlet, women convened beneath lunar fullness to harvest pennyroyal and tansy, steeping them into infusions for contraception, though the margin between efficacy and lethality was perilously narrow. Mandrake, with its anthropomorphic root, was prized as a fertility talisman when affixed to the flesh. Counterfeit specimens, sculpted from bryony, proliferated in marketplaces. Though the Church decried these as sorcery, even the pious could not wholly forsake them. The boundary betwixt rustic healing and enchantment blurred indistinguishably. A woman might invoke St. Margaret for secure parturition whilst interring placental remnants beneath her doorway to secure future fecundity. She might don a crucifix to Vespers while concealing amber amid her bosom to ward off miscarriage. Medieval prophylaxis merged myth, venom, and despair. Women were instructed to leap rearward sevenfold post-coitus to dislodge seed, or imbibe wine infused with pulverized bees. More hazardous were elixirs of mercury, lead, and toxins that frequently claimed the user's life alongside any embryo. The repercussions of unintended gestation were dire. Absent dependable prevention, women perpetually faced mortal peril in labor, with 1 in 3 succumbing during or soon after birth. For the unwed, pregnancy heralded societal ruin, banishment, or execution. Infanticide, though denounced, was tacitly acknowledged as a desperate recourse. Matrimonial pacts resembled strategic maneuvers, with physiques as the chief terrain. When Margot's sire brokered her betrothal to Henrik, her chastity constituted her principal endowment, surpassing any material wealth. The maidenhead emerged as a token of virtue, bartered among lineages, as testament to a daughter's purity and a clan's repute. The nuptial eve transcended mere union. It demanded communal attestation of virginity. The stained linens would be paraded before the throng as validation of legitimacy. Absent crimson evidence, the bride might be repudiated in ignominy, labeled licentious, or slain for deceit. The burden upon fledgling brides was immense. Some covertly lanced digits or concealed avian blood to fabricate the requisite proof. Yet medieval anatomy's grasp of virginity was profoundly erroneous. They conceived the hymen as an impermeable barrier sealing the orifice, not the pliant, incomplete structure it islanded. Its absence was deemed incontrovertible proof of dalliance, disregarding ruptures from equestrian pursuits, laborious toil, or innate variances. Ecclesiastical tenets on consummation spawned peculiar customs. A union lacked juridical force sans carnal penetration, rendering verification a forensic pursuit. Ecclesiastical tribunals scrutinized spouses, interrogating them apart on nuptial intimacies, inspecting the woman's form for intrusion marks, and soliciting neighbors' accounts of overheard sounds. Medieval postures in Congress were rigidly ordained by doctrine, yet actuality proved more nuanced. The patriarchal stance was not merely favored, but obligatory to evade damnation. The Church decreed that female superiority inverted divine hierarchy, while posterior entry evoked beastly instincts. Nevertheless, vernacular tales intimate greater intricacy. The fabliaux, ribald French narratives of the era, depict liaisons that would appall prelates. Circulated by itinerant bards in alehouses and fairs, these yarns unveil a clandestine realm of prohibited explorations amid perdition's shadow. The poet Andreas Capellanus, circa 1184, chronicled intricate wooing rites with explicit directives on configurations and arts. His treatise implies that nobility harbored refined carnal insights beyond ecclesiastical bounds, though such indulgences were perilous arcana, risking ostracism, banishment, or demise. Medieval folk quaked before carnal fiends that stalked during vulnerability. Succubi and incubi transcended myth. They were doctrinal verities. Prelates instructed that these entities could assume mortal guise to ensnare souls, siphoning vitality via congress. Theologians elaborated, a fiend might adopt feminine aspect to harvest male essence, then masculine to inseminate, yielding accursed progeny. Succubi accounted for nocturnal pollutions and illicit reveries. Incubi menaced women with superior might. Victims recounting inexplicable encounters teetered between prey and enchantress. What we term sleep paralysis immobility with thoracic oppression was deemed infernal violation, prompting exorcisms or pyres. Menstruation's medieval lens was steeped in dread and lore persisting eons. Menses were venomous, capable of withering fields, curdling vintages, and emasculating men. Pliny the Elder, revered in academies, alleged it maddened hounds and dulled blades. Menstruants were pariahs, barred from sanctuaries, cuisine, or relics. Some villages mandated isolation in peripheral shacks. The Church ascribed menses to Eve's transgression, each cycle a stigma of feminine culpability. Ignorance bred outlandish therapies. Physicians posited retained blood poisoned internally, prescribing phlebotomy and emetics to harmonize humors. Some advocated congress as antidote, deeming male emission neutralized toxins. Women cultivated esoteric lore for cycle governance, employing moss, linens, rags, or pelts as absorbents, charting by moon phases, concocting herbals for alleviation transmitted matrilineally, veiled from patriarchal scrutiny lest branded heresy. The era fostered arcane doctrines on carnal harmony via zodiacs, humors, and physiognomy. Healers held that bliss and fruitfulness hinged on thermal moist equilibria betwixt partners. A fervent husband might clash with a temperate wife, yielding discord. Elite kin commissioned somatic appraisals. Healers gauged bridal contours, ample pelvis betokened bounty, slender barrenness. Groom's members scrutinized for accord. These probes mirrored livestock assessments. Ecclesia proffered spiritual compatibility metrics, cursing consanguine unions with dysfunction and anomalies. Intricate kinship prohibitions annulled many bonds upon unearthed ties. Carnality entwined with honor, disgrace, and hierarchy. Masculine virility mirrored martial prowess. Impotence invited communal scorn, eroding stature. French idioms veiled dysfunction in shame's lexicon. For women, repute was brittle. Whispers could shatter prospects and lineage. In insular hamlets, unchaperoned discourse with unrelated males invited slander. Matrons navigated perpetual gossip vigilance. Jurisprudence mirrored carnal phobias. Violation offended not the victim but her guardian sire, spouse, or suzerain. Sanctions fluctuated by strata. A lord assaulting a serf might incur trifling levy. Inverse merited agony and gibbet. Adultery scourged women alone. A wife straying faced spousal execution sans reprisal, codified in statutes. Husbands, conversely, dallied with unwed, courtesans, or retainers' impunity. The epoch birthed enduring courtship mores via troubadour verse, elevating eros to ethereal pursuit. Courtly amour idealized extramarital devotion, chaste yearning refining the spirit through torment bifurcating functional wedlock from sublime passion. Peasant courtship pragmatically weighed economics. Affection yielded to advantageous pacts. Betrothals tested via bundled repose-clad, partitioned by plank, assessing affinity sans risque. Pagan carnal enchantments endured covertly, cloaked in Christian guise. Maypole revels retained eroticism. Nocturnal woodland forays masked amorous trials, yielding vernal conceptions. Nuptials featured fecundity rites. Grain showers, bed consecrations blended holy and arcane to bolster progeny amid rampant infant demise. Conception theories fused Aristotle, dogma, and law. Dual seeds mingled, necessitating female ecstasy fueling rape myths. Lunar, astral influences purportedly dictated offspring gender and fate. Surveillance intensified, confessional probes mined privacies, Inquisition tortured for carnal confessions, manuals detailing inquiries. Incarceration for carnal offences was grim. Adulteresses caged unto starvation. Rapists emasculated pre-execution deterrence, terrorizing conformity. Carnal pedagogy proliferated covertly. Medical codices for elite. Penitentials catalogued vices. Manuals advised nobility on arts veiled from masses. Chastity girdles symbolized female subjugation. Brothels, paradoxically regulated, mandated distinct garb and inspections. Droid de Seigneur's spectre underscored serf vulnerability. Carnality swayed omens. Monarchs timed Congress astrologically. Generals enforced abstinence pre-combat. Communal oversight curtailed privacy. Trysts amid kin normalized sensory exposure. Class stratified eros. Nobility indulged luxuries. Peasantry prioritized progeny over bliss. Wedlock emphasized endurance. Carnality secondary. Yet resistance flourished. Desire defied repression. Returning to Margot, Henric's grasp in candles glow. Her dread embodies cultural freight doctrine, honor, scrutiny, survival's plea. Medieval eros, forged in authority's forge, mirrors timeless urges. Its restrictions underscore desire's tenacity. Intimacy was communal, fraught, yet humanity persisted in seeking bonds. These customs arose from doctrine, structure, necessity, need illuminating progress and perdurance. Ultimately, sexuality remains political, perilous, vital. Medieval strivings echo eternal quests for liberty amid constraint. In flickering light, their touch encapsulates civilization's carnal crux: fear, myth, hope, yearning within, ostensibly private, yet eternally besieged, confines.